we are continuing with Act 1, Scene 7. Previously, we saw that Macbeth is giving his soliloquy, where he shows his dilemma on whether he should kill Duncan or not. Now, early Shakespeare had portrayed Macbeth as a brave and honorable general, as we saw in the beginning of the play, who received high praises and admiration from everyone around him. Now, this praise also included King Duncan, who honored Macbeth for his triumphant defeat of the Norwegian rebel who was MacDonald. And now Macbeth has invited King Duncan over to stay the night in his castle, and it was another way to pay homage to the king. But with ambition and aspirations in extreme can lead one to commit horrible acts in order to fulfill his goals. Now, as we saw, the dramatic effect in this scene is very high. There is a heightened suspense of whether Macbeth will choose to kill Duncan or not. And by the soliloquy, audience is made to believe that Macbeth will not kill Duncan. But as we see Lady Macbeth, she brainwashes Macbeth towards the end, and he decides to kill Duncan and take the throne. Now, as I told you earlier, this scene has been enacted on a very dark and gloomy setting, where there is a lot of echo. Now, this gives audience the effect of evil in the set. This scene is also important because it shows Macbeth's faithfulness towards Duncan, and we see his good side also. The audience is shown that Lady Macbeth was one of the main factors behind pushing Macbeth towards murdering Duncan. So here today we begin with the entrance of Lady Macbeth. Here we see that Lady Macbeth enters and tells her husband that Duncan the king has dined and that he has been asking for Macbeth. And Macbeth declares that he no longer intends to kill Duncan. So here we see Lady Macbeth says that he has almost supped, means the king has had his dinner, and hath he asked for me? Know you not he has. So the king has asked about Macbeth. So Macbeth refuses to do any kind of deed like murdering the king, and he says, we will proceed no further in this business. He has honored me of late, and I have bought golden opinions from all sorts of people. So here we see that in this scene, or this scene is dominated by Lady Macbeth, who is probably the most memorable character in the play, as we see. And Lady Macbeth immediately detects Macbeth's self-doubt. So, as soon as Macbeth admits to her that his golden reputation might lose its glow, what does he say? Golden opinions from all sorts of people, which would be worn now in the newest clothes, not cast aside so soon. So, she sets out to strengthen his resolve by mocking his perceived weakness. And her questions drive further the wedge between daring and doing, between courage and action, and between desire and fulfillment. And what does she say? Was the hope drunk wherein you dressed yourself? Hath it slept since? And wakes it now to look so green and pale? So she calls Macbeth green and pale, means a coward, at what it did so freely. From this time such I account thy love. Art thou afraid to be the same in thine own act and valor as thou art in desire? So she says, why do you differ? Why is the discrepancy between your action and your desire. Your desire is to become a king, to get the throne. But why are you doubting your strength in taking the action for the same? Wouldst thou have that which thou estimest the ornament of life? Ornament of life here means he wants to become the king, he wants to get the throne. And live a coward in thine own esteem? Don't you want to get the throne? Would you like to live like a coward all your life? Letting I dare not wait upon I would, like the poor cat in the adage. So now she is referring to the proverb about the cat. So Lady Macbeth says that he resembles the proverbial poor cat, in which the cat wanted the fish but he would not get his paws wet. And Macbeth says, I dare do all that may become a man. Who dares do more is none. And Lady Macbeth replies, what beast was it then that made you break this enterprise to me? When you durst do it, then you were a man. Means if you carry out this action, then you are a man. And to be more than what you were, you would be so much more the man. Nor time nor place did then adhere, and yet you would make both. They have made themselves, and that their fitness now does unmake you. Fitness here means appropriateness. Now she talks about herself. I have given suck and know how tender it is to love the babe that milks me. I would, while it was smiling in my face, have plucked my nipple from his boneless gums and dashed the brains out, had I so sworn as you have done to this. Now, just look at her speech, look at her dialogue, and she so damningly tells him that her lack of pity would extend to murdering her own child as it suckled at her breast. Now, with this one terrifying example, Lady Macbeth confirms that the milk of human kindness is absent in her. And when Macbeth says, if we should fail, means when Macbeth is afraid that they will fail, she assures him that they won't fail if they show courage. And her next dialogue, it commences with a shift in tone. No less pragmatic, but even more ruthlessly efficient, as Lady Macbeth switches her attention to the details of the murder itself. And she says, screw up your courage to its limit. Sticking place means limit, and will not fail. And when she is telling the plan of murder to Macbeth, when Duncan is asleep, where to the rather shall his day's hard journey soundly invite him? His two chamberlains means his guards, attendants, will I with wine and wassail so convince that memory, the warder of the brain, shall be a fume. So she will drug the guards, make them drink so much that they will go unconscious. So look at the imagery. Shall be a fume, and the receipt of reason a limb back only. Limb back is a... Now these images have been taken from the science of alchemy. Limbag is a container for an alchemist's solution, in which he prepares the solution. And here it means, Limbag means Macbeth's plan. When in swinish sleep their drenched natures lie as in death, what cannot you and I perform upon? So when the guards are sleeping, when they are drunk, then we both will commit the murder. The unguarded Duncan, what not put upon his spongy officers, who shall bear the guilt? So we will use their swords and blame them for this murder of our great quail. And Macbeth says, bring forth man children only. So it seems here that Macbeth also agrees that Lady Macbeth is made up of a strong metal, and he says, for thy undaunted metal here means courage, should compose nothing but males. So she is strong as a male. Will it not be received when we have marked with blood those sleepy two of his own chamber and used their very daggers that they have done it? And Lady Macbeth says, who dares receive it other, as we shall make our griefs and clamour roar upon his death? Means now both are being mentally prepared to pretend. Look at the image of pretense. Macbeth says, now Macbeth is also finally agreeing with the plan of his wife, and it seems that Macbeth has been convinced, and he now puts on the robe of a murderer. And he says, I am settled and bent up, each corporal agent, means all my physical part, every part of myself, to this terrible feat. Away and mock the time with fairest show. And look at the last line, false face must hide what the false heart does know. So here we see that Macbeth has also put on the robe of a murderer, and this monosyllabic false face must hide what the false heart must know. Here is a certainty to it that completely overturns Macbeth's earlier dilemma.